Good morning, class. Today we will learn about the chapter water. So, what we consider as water is a molecule of hydrogen and oxygen. These two elements combinedly forms the water molecules in a ratio of 2 is to 1, forming it to H2O. So, what we understand about the water that it is a basic compound which is necessary for the survival of life. It is a compound which help in origination of life. It is the compound which has the basic function in supporting of life. So when we talk about water, we found that the water have basically two types, naming fresh water and saline water. These are basic two types of water which are naturally found on the earth. We also know that the 70% of the earth is covered by what? Water. So when we talk about that 70% of earth is covered by what? Water. The most of that water is a saline water. And what is a saline water? A water which have different salt compounds. Now another term here comes, that is salt. So what is a salt? So in your science textbooks, you have read about acids, bases and salts. These salts are similar to this one, the salt. So salt, scientifically talking about salt, these are, when we scientifically talk about salts, these are basically the compounds made when we mix an acid plus a base. It always gives a salt compound. For example, the common household salt, the NaCl, which is sodium chloride. Another one is KCl, potassium chloride. Another one is CaCl2, calcium chloride. So these are some basic salt compounds which we found in sea, mainly being sodium chloride. Now when we talk about the fresh water, these water have very less amount of salt and are basically fresh. And when we call it fresh, what does it mean? It means it simply have a compound of H2O and other solute are in less numbers. So fresh water doesn't mean that it doesn't have a salt. It only means that it has a very negligible amount or a very less amount of salt. Now, when we talk about water, it is very important to understand what is a water cycle is. So, you have already studied about water cycle in third class or maybe in fourth or fifth class. A water cycle basically means how water changes its form and completes a cycle. So, when we talk about which type of a cycle, so this is what a sea have a what saline water. A sea have a what? Saline water. When the source of a heat, sun, heats up what? The sea water, the evaporation take place. So when the sea water heats up, the evaporation take place and the water is converted into what? Water vapor. Water is converted into what? A water vapor. When a water vapor goes into the atmosphere, it what does? Condensation. The condensation simply means the conversion of water vapor into small water droplets. Water droplets. Small water droplets. These water droplets later combine with smoke, dust, forms what? Clouds. And these clouds, when it becomes heavy and charged enough, leads to precipitation. So precipitation generally means rain, and these rainwaters get collected into different channels like rivers, canals, lakes, and these things generally finally returns to what? Sea. So this is what a complete water cycle is. How a complete water cycle is formed. Now, where the journey of water started, it's at sea, firstly evaporation, then condensation. After condensation, it converts into clouds, and after clouds, it converts into precipitation. And after precipitation, these channels collect the water, and after the collection of water, these generally return back to the sea. So this is what a water cycle is. Now, these are simple terms what a water cycle is. But here we talked about ocean, we talked about sea. So what these water bodies generally are? So when we talk about the freshwater water bodies like river, lakes, glaciers, these are generally of freshwater bodies. But when we talk about oceans, seas, or a bay, have you heard about the Bay of Bengal or a Gulf, the Gulf of Mannar? So these are the terms generally referring to the saline water bodies. So can anyone tell me what is the ocean is? So ocean generally means it is a largest body containing a saline water. So it's firstly it is the largest water body. Second, it is a saline water, and final, it is not surrounded by any land. And it is a very important point. First, the ocean is the largest what water body on earth. Secondly, it contains what? Saline water, and it is not surrounded by land on any side. If these characteristics bear by any water body, then it is called what? Ocean. We have generally we talk about five oceans. These are Pacific, Indian Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, Arctic Ocean, and lastly Southern Ocean. So these are basic five oceans we have. Next we have sea. So what's a sea is? So sea is a similar to ocean. It is smaller than an ocean, but a big enough body. Here the distinction comes from the land. So a sea is surrounded by land on only only on one side. So a sea is a similar to ocean, but a smaller than an ocean. It has saline water. It has a saline water, but the distinction comes from land. It has a land on one side of it. Next is a bay. A bay is a type of a sea. It is a sea. It also has a saline water. It also has a saline water, but a bay has a structure where it is surrounded on three sides by a land. A bay is a water body which is surrounded by a water on three sides. Similar to a peninsula is a land which is surrounded by water on three sides. A bay is a water body that is surrounded by land on three sides. Now, a gulf. A gulf is similar to a bay, meaning it is also surrounded by what? Waters, land on three sides. It is also surrounded by land on three sides, but it has a smaller opening. Meaning, if a bay, for example, look like this, a gulf will look like this. Meaning, if you see that a bay has what? An larger opening, and a gulf is having a smaller opening. So did you understand the basic difference between an ocean, a sea, a bay and a gulf? Now moving on, ocean circulation. So have you all seen aquarium? So in seeing an aquarium, you always see a large tumbler of water having a man, a scuba diver man, carrying this bubbling device. Have you seen it? So what does this bubbling device do? It mixes the oxygen, or what we call it dissolves the oxygen in water. Similarly, the ocean circulation does the same thing. But its main reason why this circulation happens differs on different parameters. For example, it depends on what temperature, it depends on pressure, it depends on gravity, it depends on air surfaces, air winds, etc. So these are different reason why the circulation in ocean happens. And due to circulation of water, what happens? The oxygen get dissolved in water, and in return, it supports what? Life in sea. And it also helps in what? One another process which we studied earlier, water cycle. So this is why a circulation of ocean is very important. So ocean circulation mainly consists of three basic processes, naming waves, second one being the tides, and the third and the most important, ocean currents. So these are three basic processes which happen in the ocean circulation, and by these processes the ocean circulate its water. Now, when we talk about waves, it is happening due to air waves, or what we call winds. It is due to winds. The winds flowing, the winds flowing above the sea causes what? Waves. When we talk about tides, tides is due to the gravitation. The gravitational pull of sun and the moon. But the moon. But the moon is the most important player here. We will talk it about later in this video. Now, when we talk about ocean currents, this mainly depends on the temperature of the sea. So the temperature of the sea helps in the circulation of water within the sea. Apart from this, next is the Coriolis force. It's a force which is due to the rotation of the earth. Moving on, let's talk about waves. Earlier we have seen that waves are due to the air, or what we call the moving air, wind. It is due to wind. So when we talk about waves, it causes due to the friction. So if this is a seabed and this is the air flowing above what? A seabed. It has a basic contact with what? See here. So if the molecules above the sea level moves, it with the help of friction, it lifts this part of the surface and causing waves like this one. So waves are the simplest form of ocean circulation, and it helps in trapping the oxygen from the atmosphere into the water. Now, next, the most important one, tides. So, tides basically occur due to the revolution of moon around earth. It is due to what? The revolution of moon around earth. Now, See this figure. So this is a moon, okay, and this is what? Earth. So moon does what? It attracts these water towards it, and similarly on this side also. So assuming here is the sun. So this is how tides work. On the both ends, at the one end the moon will attract the water, and on the other hand the sun will attract the water, causing it to bulge at these ends and form a thin layer at these points. So these are called what? Low tides, and the bulged part is called high tides. And both of these things happens simultaneously in different regions of earth. So, and when we talked about tides, we have talked about the revolution of earth, revolution of moon, but earth is also rotating, so this also causes earth is also rotating, so this is also causing high tides and low tides, both in a single day. So at the earlier times in day, the low tide happens, and in later time of day the high tide will happen. So tides basically have two. The tides basically have two distinctions. Firstly, being solar tides and lunar tides. Solar tides and lunar tide. This is the first distinction. Another distinction having spring tide and neap tide. So these are the two distinctions where we distinguish between the different types of tides. So as the name suggests, that the tides due to the solar gravity, meaning the gravity of sun, and the tides due to the gravity of moon. Coming on to the spring tides and neap tides. Spring tides, if we see the figure, this is sun, this is earth, and this is our pyar moon. So we only have one moon. Here it is showing the different position of the moon. So the spring tide occurs when the moon is between earth and sun, meaning at the time of new moon. Meaning at the time of full moon and new moon. So these are the two positions when what the spring tide occurs. Similarly, when the sun, the position of moon is here and here, meaning a quarter from the position, original position, then the tide which is occurring is neap tide. The next topic is ocean currents. So ocean currents is mainly due to temperature and salinity of water in ocean. So in science we have read that as the temperature rises, the density of anything or any compound or anything decreases. See, it happens similar to the water. So when the temperature of water increases, the density of water does what? It decreases. And if the density decrease of any liquid, so the lighter liquid will float above the heavier liquid. So this in turn will create a cyclic pattern within a ocean. Other thing which will happen is this: the denser the water is, the more it has a salinity. The more the water is dense, the more salt it contains. The less the water is dense, the less salt it will contain. So this will does what? It will move the water laterally. It will move the water laterally, and it will cause a lateral dispersion of what? Water within a sea. Apart from this, the Coriolis force. Apart from this, the Coriolis force, which is the force due to the rotation of Earth, will also move these currents. So currents are basically what? It is a large movement of water inside sea, and it is a very large factor when we talk what climate, what type of climate on a land it touches will be. For example, if a current is a hot, if a current is hot, the evaporation will more, and if the evaporation will be more, the precipitation will also be what? Higher. And if the precipitation will be higher, the climatic condition will be what? Hot plus obviously the wet climate. And similarly, if the ocean current is cold, evaporation will less, precipitation will also be decreasing, the temperature will be cold and dry. So the currents are also one of the factor contributing to the climatic condition of a region. So in this video we have talked about many things like what a water cycle is, how ocean circulates its water, what are waves, what are tides, what are ocean currents, and what are their significance in the so we have talked so many things, including the climatic conditions. So here we have seen that water in general is very important for the survival of life. And that's it for the video. Thank you, Regan.